In this video, we'll be helping you pick the best class for Diablo 4 with a unique twist that we've played all classes at endgame with multiple builds per class, so we can show you how they play and feel much later on. All classes are perfectly capable and powerful at endgame if you know how to build them. Some classes may have a slower start than others, but as you get your special skills and loot, you'll find they all grow really well. Many people are considering there is an established tier list already, but the reality is that your enjoyment will come from the playstyle you pick, so understanding your chosen class is an important decision. This is a summary of each class paired with an endgame performance to help you pick. Up first, we'll take a look at the Sorceress or Sorcerer. The Sorceress or Sorcerer are intelligence-based caster classes. They're perfect for players that enjoy controlling the battlefield and that like to deal elemental damage. Players that enjoy having plenty of effects on screen, such as freezing and then exploding something, or burning something, or electrocuting and stunning enemies, will love this class. Users that like to use stationary spells that deal damage over an area of effect while using another skill to focus on a single target will also enjoy it. The Sorceress relies heavily on a smart combination of skills and equipment, and usually requires to spend a couple of skills on survivability because of their low health. Players that enjoy glass cannon builds might enjoy this for this reason as well. The enchantment system allows players to enjoy the effective skills even while they're not directly using them, providing a lot of gameplay variety. This allows users to enjoy benefits of skills they might like, even while not playing with that specific skill. The main playstyles for the Sorcerer or Sorceress are Pyromancer, focusing on pyromancy skills for low health but high regen and burst DPS damage that pairs up with AoEs, and is a thrilling kind of gameplay with plenty of spectacle. Freeze and Control. Focus on controlling the battlefield by freezing and slowing enemies. Players that want to dominate the battlefield with control spells will be able to freeze everything on screen and deal massive damage to them. Lightning and Speed. The Sorcerer's Teleport has always been a coveted and unique mechanic of the class, and Diablo 4 makes Lightning Sorcerers masters of speed by giving special legendaries that benefit from movement speed bonuses. The Lightning Sorceress is a speed clear rusher's dream. And finally, Master of the Elements. Players that enjoy inflicting different types of status ailments and combining them together and using plenty of barriers will become essentially immortal. The pros of this class are battlefield control, skills that provide many options without requiring aspects, different types of elemental damage, high damage, and guided gameplay that's easy for new users to keep track of what they should do with their skills, like for example sticking to a single element. The cons are limited equipment space, limiting the amount of aspects you can use, low health depending on skills or barriers to stay alive, and some builds might get repetitive since you can control the field so well it's a bit like shooting fish in a barrel, and less resource generation mechanics than other classes, and higher elemental consumption often end in wait times in between pulls. We recommend the Pyromancer Sorceress for a great mix of damage and fanfare. Next we come to the Necromancer. Necromancers are the summoner class of Diablo 4, and they can play ranged or melee with intelligence being their main stat. Players that enjoy having summons and minions will be more inclined to play this class. Necromancers often stay on the back of the battlefield while providing support to their minions and using powerful skills to destroy or weaken their enemies. They have a unique corpse mechanic that is kind of mandatory to use, so players will often need to manage multiple resources at the same time, being essence, corpses, minions' health, etc., and they can also generate blood orbs, which act as an additional resource. Players that enjoy tactical gameplay will enjoy this playstyle, as minions will deal with the front lines, allowing the Necromancer to plan and control what's happening from a safe distance. Users that get overwhelmed with everything happening on the screen will not enjoy most builds that Necromancers use. The Necromancer also allows to play solo by sacrificing part of all of your minions, greatly boosting your own power. While it doesn't have many playstyles as other characters, each of them feels very unique. The Necromancer's unique mechanic is the Book of the Dead, which allows you to personalize each minion type to fit your current build. You can also sacrifice each type of minion for increased stats. For survivability, it mainly uses its minions to stay safe. While playing alone, it has a lot of ways to greatly increase its HP and even fortify itself, similar to the Barbarian. The main playstyles available to the Necromancer are solo overpower burst damage. This build sacrifices your minions for increased health and damage. You'll use the overpower mechanic to quickly annihilate all enemies while boosting your own stats to stay alive. Corpse Explosion. This build generates as many corpses as possible and explodes them to deal either static damage or damage over time. Players will need to control the battlefield and use minions to stay safe. Summoner. This build focuses around your minions and increasing their damage by debuffing enemies and inserting aspects that increase their power. And lastly, Mage DPS. This can either be a solo player or a hybrid between minions and spells, using the minions as a shield. Use bone spells that focus around critical damage to quickly destroy elites and bosses. The pros of this class are that it's a very safe playstyle, using minions while staying behind them. It has a variety of very distinct builds, and it's good early game and noob friendly since your minions will do the work for you while you learn. The cons are that it can get overwhelming to manage all resources and mechanics. You usually have long cooldowns. For high level play, it requires a good comprehension of build mechanics when using minions. It's highly dependent on equipment to make some builds work, and it has a limited amount of aspects due to equipment slots. Druids are nature mages that can summon companions, shapeshift, and command the elements to destroy their foes. Their main stat is willpower, which not only increases their skill damage, but also increases their overpower damage, synergizing very well with some of the skills that they use. Similar to the rogue, the druid is a jack-of-all-trades style of class that allows you to quickly shift back and forth between a melee or casting type of playstyle. Players who like to use melee skills while also casting powerful spells will find this class to be right up their alley. Druids in particular have exceptional AoE damage, but lack a little bit of single target damage that can make them difficult to play against facing one powerful enemy like a boss, particularly in the early goings of the game. They also have a typically slow start compared to many of the other classes, and learning to manage Spirit, which is the resource of the Druid, can be exceptionally difficult to do for new players until they get the hang of the class. Spirit boons are the unique mechanic of the Druid, allowing them to bond to different spirits in the game, providing them with unique passive bonuses that sometimes can change a build entirely. Tinkering with these spirit boons and adjusting them depending on what build you're playing is a huge part of playing the Druid build, and it can be really fun for those who love to min-max and tinker with builds, but might be a little tedious for those that just want to put something on autopilot and play. For survivability, Druids not only use barriers, but they also use the Fortify mechanic, not unlike the Barbarian and Necromancer, to prevent a lot of damage dealt to them, and while also increasing their damage at the same time. Playstyles available to the Druid are Werewolf, which allows them to shift into a very powerful werewolf that focuses on dealing critical damage and dealing damage over time with poisons. Poisons in this game stack, so it allows them to get a lot of damage over time on a lot of enemies simultaneously. Werebear, which is another melee-focused build that has a huge focus on overpower, dealing incredible burst damage, but doesn't have sustained DPS, meaning that you have very big spikes of damage, but you have very slow amounts of time in between those spikes. Then there's using nature magic between earth, lightning, and physical damage spells that deal damage from afar, allowing you to play as a pure caster while protecting yourself with barriers. And then lastly is a hybrid style of play where you mix and match spell casting with shapeshifting in the terms of werewolf or werebear, with some storm or nature skills, allowing you to get the best of both worlds. The pros of this class are that they can summon companions not unlike the Necromancer, though to a lesser extent. They also have a wider variety of playstyles compared to some other classes in the game. They can reach exceptionally high damage late game if built correctly, and they are rather tanky compared to some other classes. The cons are that they can start out extremely slow compared to other classes, making them feel sluggish in the early parts of the game, primarily because spirit gain is hard to navigate when you're first learning the class, and this can give you a lot of downtime in between skills. Additionally, synergies between skills are not always inherently obvious, making trial and error a must for anyone playing a Druid build. Some of the playstyles available to the Druid are extremely legendary aspect dependent, so even though they seem like they would be good, if you don't have the right equipment, a lot of times they will underperform. And lastly, Druids have a limited amount of aspects due to having less equipment slots than Rogues and Barbarians. Barbarians are a strength-based melee class. They are perfect for people who like to fight up close and feel the power of their skills on the enemies they face, and there are no ranged weapons for the Barbarians, so you are forced to fight face to face. Players that enjoy the adrenaline of constantly taking and dealing damage while getting the satisfaction to destroy everything and move really fast will enjoy this character. Barbarians have very high health, and they also provide access to the Fortify mechanic, which relies on the amount of health you have versus the amount of damage you've taken. Players that enjoy managing their health will enjoy this mechanic, but others may feel it kind of dull and not rewarding. The main playstyles of Barbarians are Whirlwind Barbarian, and this allows you to quickly maneuver the battlefield to defeat big packs of enemies. It's very fun for users that mainly enjoy defeating multiple enemies at the same time, and don't like to stand in a single place. Instead of focusing on combinations of skills, you simply move around the battlefield using shouts and repositioning on the best place to maximize efficiency. Since this highly relies on your equipment, you'll get a feeling of constant improvement while you get stronger and stronger. Bleeding skills. This allows you to apply massive damage over time on enemies, allowing you to simply strike and run to the next thing while you see enemies die on their own. Players that enjoy hit and run style tactics will enjoy this playstyle. Combo style damage. This playstyle revolves around combining different skills and aspects to create powerful one-shot combos that annihilate enemy groups. The arsenal system also encourages swapping weapons between different skills to gain bonuses. It's perfect for players that enjoy combo mechanics of building up a skill and then unleashing a devastating blow, as well as for users that like to constantly swap between different skills. And lastly, the support playstyle. While not frequent for ARPGs, shouts allow barbarians to greatly boost companion abilities as well as taunting enemies and tanking them, which might be appealing to some users, although this is obviously not a meta thing. In short, the pros of this build are that it fights up close, it has the arsenal system which allows you to swap between many different weapons, allowing you to theorycraft equipment, and has access to more weapon slots, thus more offensive legendary aspects. The cons are that it doesn't have ranged attacks, it has a rather slow start, and requires a considerable amount of character planning. We recommend the Whirlwind Barbarian for a good amount of fun and speed clearing with unique barb gameplay. Up next is the Rogue. The Rogue is a versatile dexterity and critical class. It's a very mobile character, and it's sort of a jack of all trades as it can fight in melee or at range. It crowd controls enemies and debuffs them, as well as performing AoE and single target damage. Players that like constantly smashing buttons to quickly move through the battlefield and continuously casting skills will enjoy this style of play, while players that get confused by many buttons will hate it. Players that like to swap between different playstyles will be able to do so, as they can quickly respec from range to melee while keeping similar mechanics. Rogues have a very wide range of builds, but most of them are specific and require min-maxing, which negates the possibility to play around with them as much. Rogue has a somewhat higher skill cap compared to other classes to be played correctly, and will be more appreciated by users that want to be focused over players that enjoy chilling. Rogues don't have high health and have better dodge mechanics than other characters, as well as having some skills that greatly reduce damage taken. The best way to stay alive is to remain mobile and keep enemies crowd-controlled or far away. The specialization mechanic provides even more options, allowing you to swap between combo points, which enhances your main skills, Inner Sight, which forces you to attack specific enemies to build up a bar, and once that bar is full, you'll have a grace period to enjoy unlimited energy, and Preparation, which reduces your ultimate cooldowns and resets other cooldowns while using ultimates. The main playstyles of this build are Shadow Imbuement, which imbues your attacks with a debuff that causes explosions, dealing a ton of AoE damage. This can be played both melee and ranged, and requires you to group up enemies to execute the explosion. Players that like setting up a combo and exploding it at the right time to kill everything in a single strike will enjoy this playstyle. Poison Imbuement deals very high damage in the form of poison, quickly dealing damage over time. Good against groups of enemies and even better against bosses, and players that enjoy damage over time to quickly deal with bosses will enjoy this build. Trapper. Set down traps on the battlefield that deal poison damage and burst damage in combination with crowd control skills to keep yourself safe. Players that like hit and run mechanics will enjoy this build. And Burst Crit Damage. Either for melee, ranged, or hybrid, you can make burst DPS damage on single targets, take advantage of debuffs and passives. Players will need to constantly move through the battlefield to engage and disengage enemies, and players that like to kite will enjoy this playstyle. The pros of this class is that they're the jack of all trades. They have many options and can quickly transition from one build to another by respecking. They allow for a play style of ranged and melee, which most classes don't allow. They're very mobile, allowing you to quickly reposition yourself on the battlefield. They have many crowd control options as well as survivability options, and they have a good amount of equipment slots, allowing you to stack many offensive aspects. The cons are they are very narrow or specific builds. They require a lot of concentration to play. They require players to constantly move and smash keys, and depending on the build, it might have a very mechanic-heavy gameplay. So that wraps up our video on the best class for you, showing you some of the endgame footage of these classes so you can sort of decide which direction you want to go with them, as well as explaining some of the ways you might play them. We will obviously have detailed videos for all of these builds on the channel, and starter level videos for, leveling up characters to get to that part of the game as well. Make sure that you bookmark the wiki and the interactive map to help you with your playthrough. So what did you guys think of our guide? Are you excited to get to endgame in Diablo 4? Let me know in the comments below.